I'm Beau Price, and this is Meet the Ocean Encounters.
Meet the ocean.
2015, I decided to go on a year-long trip, living out of a 40-litre backpack, and try and make my way around the world via land, pretty much. Started in the Philippines, and that was the last flight into Hong Kong, and it took me 3.5, 4 months to get from Hong Kong up through China, Mongolia, Siberia, across Russia, into Eastern Europe and down to Berlin. But this story takes place in Siberia, and as a child, I wanted to dive the frozen Lake Baikal. Largest freshwater body on the planet, holds 20% of the fresh water in the world, and she freezes 100% over in the wintertime, sometimes meters thick. So I made my way up there after a few months and finally got into a little place called Listivyanka, or Kusk. Pretty cool place, very cold, very bleak. People can be quite on the cold side, no pun intended, but they allowed me to cut a hole in the ice by a chainsaw and allow me to dive through this thing. So I was able to put a tick in the box with the bucket list. But up there, not many people do dive. However, people had equipment. So through my very, very, if non-existent communicational skills in Russian, I was able to talk to a few locals, and I was able to piece together certain equipment: dry suit here, regulators here, tank there, chainsaw here, piece of rope there. And we managed to walk out on the ice, and they cut a big hole in the ice. It was about 3 feet thick. And spent the next half an hour to 40 minutes chipping away at it with a pickaxe just to clear the ice out. And they dressed me into a dry suit. I wore every bit of clothing that I owned underneath said dry suit, not expecting to dive. And they set up all the gear, and I think they were arguing about how to set up the gear, but again, communication barriers. Didn't quite know what was going on. Long story short, managed to get all the gear on, and they didn't quite trust me, so they tied a rope around me. And I jumped in, and it was probably about 1 degree to 2 degrees Celsius, but the visibility down there was phenomenal. We're talking a couple of 100 meters. If it felt like you could see, it was liquid air. There's a weird, very, very cool kind of thing that happens down there is when freshwater meets saltwater, the freshwater freezes sooner. So when you start getting to the shallower points of the actual lake, you start getting these tree root kind of systems where the freshwater is frozen amongst the brackish saltwater. So it felt like you were literally diving amongst elven, icy kind of tree roots. And I was about half an hour into the dive, freezing cold. Wetsuit wasn't, the dry suit wasn't the best fit. But long story short, because the conditions were so cold, my regulators failed. And as the fail-safe, regulators fail open and give you too much air, free-flowing, instead of shutting off all supply. So throughout training in the past, we are trained to breathe off a free-flowing regulator where you sip at it, making sure that you're monitoring the air supply and basically make your way to the surface as soon as possible. But being ice diving, it's an overhead environment, and I had kind of gone exploring a fair bit away. So at that point in time, I was able to reference where I was in relation to where the rope was pointing back to the exit. Free-flowing, bubbles in your face, disorientating your mask. At that point in time, I took the regulator out purely because I thought I could fiddle with the settings, the Venturi settings on the regulator. But my face was so numb that when I tried to put the regulator back in, I couldn't orientate it because I couldn't feel where I was hitting my face in with the regulator. Kind of laughing, but at the same time making sure that it actually did get back into my mouth. I had to grab my hand and kind of put it in my mouth to get the regulator back in. And still free-flowing, I made my way to the top of the ice, knowing the rope was facing a certain way, but I knew that the shallower I was, the closer I would be to the surface once I gained there. So I was probably 60 to 80 feet from the hole they cut out of the ice. So I made the most of it at the time, obviously, being a 24-year-old kid with a GoPro. I inverted myself up on the ice and essentially walked upside down along that duration, or that distance, and finally managed to right myself out through the hole and came up with just the right amount of air before I'd run out. So yeah, heart rate was a bit high at that point in time, but yeah, still got to dive the frozen lake and through makeshift gear and survived it and able to tell the story.
Meet the Ocean is produced by Paul North and Andrew Gettings with sound design by Kelsey Anderson. Special thanks to Beau Price for his story diving under the ice of Russia's Lake Baikal, the deepest lake on our planet. We are a listener-supported nonprofit. You can find more podcasts, underwater creatures, and ways to donate to our educational outreach on our website, meettheocean.org. Subscribe to our podcast to never miss an episode, and please rate and review Meet the Ocean on Apple Podcasts or on whatever platform you choose to listen. Until next time, may the saltwater be with you.